Have you ever wondered why so many couples stick to the same handful of routines in intimacy, even though desire itself is limitless? Think about it. When was the last time you asked your partner, or they asked you, for something truly different? The truth is, men often carry hidden desires that they don't express, not because they don't want them, but because they fear judgment, rejection, or simply don't know how to articulate what they crave. This silence doesn't mean the craving disappears. Instead, it lingers, becoming a quiet distance that keeps intimacy from being as deep as it could be. Here's where it gets fascinating. The positions men secretly crave are rarely about just the physical. They're about emotion, vulnerability, and the way power shifts between two people. It's not the act that matters most. It's the feeling that comes with it. When you understand that, you stop thinking of intimacy as a set of mechanical moves and start seeing it as a language. And once you learn to speak that language, your connection changes completely. Have you ever stopped to think about how much pressure men carry when it comes to intimacy? They are often expected to lead, to initiate, to be the one who always has the plan, the move, the energy. Society has conditioned many men to feel like if they're not in control, they're somehow failing. And while that script might look strong on the outside, inside it creates a quiet exhaustion. Imagine always being the driver, never being the passenger. Always carrying the responsibility of making sure the connection doesn't stall. Always being the one who is supposed to know what to do, how to do it, and when. Over time, this becomes a weight that few talk about, but many feel. And that is exactly why one of the most intimate positions men secretly crave is the moment when a woman takes control, not in a performative way, but in a way that communicates pure, undeniable desire. When a man is allowed to surrender, something powerful happens. It's not just about the act, it's about the message behind it. The message says, "You are wanted so much that I cannot hold back." For a man who is constantly told he must prove his worth, this is a profound shift. It creates a dynamic where he no longer has to chase validation because the validation is right there in front of him. The craving for this isn't always conscious. Many men might not even have the words to describe it, but they know the feeling when it happens. It is the moment where he feels chosen, when the usual dance of convincing or persuading disappears, and in its place is raw, undeniable attraction directed solely at him. Think about the psychology behind it. Human beings are wired to want to be chosen. Women know the power of feeling pursued, of being shown that someone is willing to step forward and make the effort. Men, though they rarely admit it, want that too. They want to know that their presence inspires such strong attraction that their partner can't help but take the lead. In that moment, the usual roles reverse, and the effect is electric. It cuts through routine. It reminds him he's not just the one who gives, but also the one who can receive. And receiving in this context doesn't make him weak. It makes him feel profoundly valued. There is also a deeper emotional layer here. For a man to surrender control is not easy. Many fear that if they admit to wanting this, they'll be judged. They'll be seen as less masculine, less dominant, less in charge. And yet, when the experience actually happens, it doesn't make him feel smaller. It makes him feel seen. He realizes he doesn't always have to be the engine of passion, that he can rest in the knowledge that he is equally desired. That simple shift opens up intimacy in ways couples often overlook. What makes this so impactful is the psychological safety it creates. In surrendering, a man learns to trust in a different way. He learns that his worth isn't tied to constant effort, but that his very being is enough to inspire desire. And when a partner takes control with authenticity, with genuine hunger and intention, the message is undeniable. I want you, and I'm not afraid to show it. That message lingers long after the moment is over. It seeps into the way he sees himself, into the way he walks, into the way he shows up outside the bedroom. Desire expressed in this way builds confidence at a core level. This also explains why many men secretly fantasize about being pursued, even if they don't say it out loud. It's not about flipping gender roles for the sake of it, but about balance. A relationship thrives when both partners experience the beauty of being wanted. If only one person ever feels that validation, imbalance creeps in, passion dulls. But when both know the pleasure of being the one who is chosen, intimacy transforms from routine into something alive and breathing. On a practical level, The first keynote isn't about technique or performance. It's about energy. It's about the moment where one partner decides, tonight, I'm not waiting for you to act. I'm showing you how much I want you. And that energy is contagious. It takes pressure away from the man. It liberates him. And in doing so, it deepens connection. The craving for this isn't just sexual, it's psychological, it's emotional, it's about recognition. It's about the feeling that in a world where he often has to prove himself, here he doesn't. When you understand this, you start to see intimacy not as a script to follow, but as a conversation to expand. You realize that surrender is not weakness, it is trust. And when a man is given that gift, when he is allowed to feel that kind of chosen desire, it leaves a lasting imprint. It creates a bond that strengthens not just physical intimacy, but the entire relationship. Because at its core, this keynote isn't about a position at all. It's about reminding him that he, too, deserves to feel wanted without having to ask. Have you ever noticed how most men are rarely given permission to be vulnerable? From a young age, they're told to be strong, to hold it together, to never show weakness. Crying is discouraged, softness is frowned upon, and showing need is often mocked. By the time they reach adulthood, many men have built an armor so thick that even in their closest relationships, they struggle to let it down. But here's the paradox. Intimacy without vulnerability is just performance. True connection is only possible when the masks come off. And that's why one of the most powerful and most secretly craved intimate positions for men is the one that demands eye contact, closeness, and absolute exposure. It is the position where there is no place to hide. The beauty of this moment isn't just about the physical closeness. It's about the psychological nakedness that comes with it. Imagine being so close that every breath is shared, every movement is magnified, every flicker of emotion is visible. For many men, this is terrifying. Vulnerability feels dangerous because it means admitting they don't have all the answers. They're not always strong, and they need reassurance as much as anyone else. Yet when they allow themselves to lean into that discomfort, something profound happens. They discover that intimacy at its deepest level isn't about control or dominance. It's about surrendering to being fully seen. This level of closeness creates a mirror. Eye contact, for example, has been proven in psychology to generate deeper connection between two people. It bypasses words and communicates straight to the emotional brain. When a man holds eye contact in such a vulnerable position, he's no longer performing. He's allowing his partner to see not just his body, but his soul. And while that may sound poetic, it's also scientific. Vulnerability triggers the release of oxytocin, the bonding hormone, which creates a sense of safety and attachment. That's why these moments feel so much more powerful than anything physical alone. There's also an unspoken truth here. Men long for someone who makes it safe to put the armor down. They crave the experience of not having to be the unshakable one all the time. In this position, when closeness removes every shield, they find a new kind of strength, the strength of trust. To be held without judgment, to be loved in their rawness, is one of the most healing experiences a man can have. It tells him, you don't need to pretend here. Who you are is enough. And this is where many relationships miss the mark. Couples often focus on novelty, on technique, on chasing excitement, forgetting that the deepest excitement comes from being deeply known. When a man is allowed to experience intimacy in this vulnerable way, he connects on a level that is unforgettable. It's not about physical satisfaction, it's about emotional resonance. It's the kind of closeness that leaves him lying awake afterward, thinking, this person truly sees me. What's also fascinating is how vulnerability changes behavior outside the bedroom. When a man experiences the safety of being vulnerable with his partner, it creates a ripple effect. He becomes more open in communication, more honest about his fears, and more willing to let his guard down in daily life. He learns that love doesn't mean performing strength. It means allowing someone into his weakness. And that kind of shift transforms relationships far beyond intimacy. The fear of vulnerability is deeply ingrained, but so is the craving for it. Men may not admit it openly, but they hunger for moments where they don't have to be on. They crave the stillness of being accepted without pretense. In fact, research on long-term relationships shows that couples who cultivate vulnerability report greater satisfaction and trust. Vulnerability is not a liability. It's the glue that binds. In practice, this second keynote isn't about elaborate moves. It's about slowing down. It's about resisting the temptation to distract from the discomfort of being seen. It's about leaning into the silence, letting the eyes speak, and allowing the rawness of the moment to unfold. The irony is, what men fear most, being exposed, is also what they desire most, because deep down they know that without exposure there can be no true intimacy. When you look at it this way, the vulnerable position becomes more than just an act. It becomes a gateway to emotional honesty, to healing, to connection that words can't replicate. And while it may not be the most talked about or requested, it is the one that leaves the deepest impression. Because at the end of the day, the desire isn't simply to be touched, it's to be known. And in those rare moments where vulnerability is embraced instead of hidden, men finally experience what their hearts have been quietly craving all along. Have you ever noticed how rarely men are told they are beautiful, attractive, or worthy of admiration? For women, society has created endless rituals of compliments, celebrations of beauty, and spaces where desirability is acknowledged. But for men, the narrative is often stripped away to achievement, status, or utility. He is praised for what he does, not who he is. And that is why one of the most intimate positions men secretly crave is the one where admiration takes center stage. Not shallow admiration, not empty flattery, but the genuine experience of being celebrated through closeness, through touch, through gaze. It is the rare opportunity for him to feel like his body, his presence, his masculinity are being honored in a way he has longed for but rarely received. The psychology behind this craving runs deep. Men grow up in cultures where their worth is often measured by performance, grades, jobs, money, or even the ability to provide. Very seldom are they told that their physical being, just their existence, is enough to inspire desire. Think about how often women receive attention, even unsolicited, about their appearance. Men, on the other hand, often spend decades without anyone saying, "You're stunning. I want to drink you in with my eyes." This absence creates a hunger not just for validation, but for confirmation that they are seen as attractive in a raw, human sense. This is where admiration within intimacy becomes so powerful. When a man finds himself in a position where he is clearly the one being adored, it speaks directly to that hidden hunger. It tells him that his body, his strength, his skin, his scent, all of him are worthy of being noticed. It is not about ego, but about affirmation. For once, he is not performing to earn desire. He is receiving desire simply by existing in that moment. And that kind of admiration is unforgettable. Eye contact plays a massive role here. When someone looks at a man not with analysis, not with indifference, but with unfiltered admiration, it transforms the entire atmosphere. It breaks through the years of conditioning that taught him his body is merely functional. In that gaze, he suddenly becomes more than a provider, more than a role. He becomes a man who is cherished. The same effect happens through touch that is deliberate, unhurried, exploratory. Touch that says, "I am savoring you." These small acts of attention tell him that he is not just enough, he is extraordinary. The longing for admiration also connects to the way men experience love. For many men, love is deeply tied to respect and recognition. They want to feel that who they are is not overlooked or taken for granted. A position that celebrates him, that places him at the center, scratches this very itch. It is a moment where respect is not abstract. It is lived, felt, breathed. It is the kind of admiration that doesn't need to be spoken, because the actions already say, "You are wanted, you are seen, you are mine." On a deeper level, admiration is healing. Many men carry insecurities they don't voice. Insecurities about their bodies, about not measuring up, about being compared. When admiration is given authentically, it dismantles those insecurities. It allows him to experience a level of acceptance that words alone cannot reach. In fact, studies on intimacy show that admiration and appreciation are some of the most important factors in long-term relationship satisfaction. Admiration is not vanity, it is nourishment. And the fascinating part is how men respond to being admired. When a man feels celebrated, he doesn't retreat into selfishness, he blossoms. Admiration fills him with energy that he then channels back into the relationship. It inspires confidence, generosity, and a deeper commitment to the bond. He becomes more open, more playful, and more willing to explore intimacy beyond routine. because when he feels admired, he no longer doubts his desirability. That confidence allows him to meet his partner with greater presence and depth. This craving for admiration may be secret, but it is universal. Every man, whether he admits it or not, wants to know that he is more than just functional, more than just useful. He wants to feel that he is magnetic, that his presence alone is intoxicating. And when he is finally given that gift, when admiration replaces indifference, it unlocks a level of intimacy that is both tender and exhilarating. So when a man is placed in that position of admiration, it is not just a physical moment. It is a psychological release. It is a chance to exhale years of being unseen and inhale the truth of being valued. Admiration in intimacy isn't optional. It is essential. It tells him what he rarely hears in life, that he is desirable, not for what he does, but for who he is. And that message, once received, leaves a mark that never fades. Have you ever wondered why routine slowly drains the passion out of relationships? It's not that two people stop loving each other or even stop being attracted to each other, but that repetition dulls the spark. Human beings are wired to crave novelty, and nowhere is that more evident than in intimacy. Men in particular often carry a silent craving for what can be called playful risk. This doesn't necessarily mean something extreme or outrageous, but it does mean stepping outside of the predictable script. It is the desire for spontaneity, for surprise, for the rush that comes from doing something that feels just a little bit daring. And while many men rarely express this openly, they often fantasize about it because it reminds them of the raw excitement that ignites passion in the first place. Playful risk is not about recklessness. It is about reintroducing aliveness into intimacy. Think about how the early days of attraction often feel electric. You don't yet know what will happen, where things will go, or how it will unfold. That uncertainty, rather than being scary, is intoxicating. It floods the body with adrenaline and dopamine, the very chemicals that fuel desire. Over time, however, couples often settle into patterns. They find comfort in the familiar, but comfort without variety slowly morphs into boredom. Men crave the antidote to this boredom, a moment that breaks the mold, something unexpected that makes the experience feel fresh again. This craving for playful risk is psychological as much as it is physical. On one level, it taps into the adventurous side of human nature. On another, it speaks to the deeper need for affirmation. When a partner is willing to step into novelty with him, it communicates, "I want to explore with you. I'm excited by you. You bring out the daring in me." That message is incredibly validating. It assures him that the relationship hasn't gone stale, that the attraction is still alive, and that intimacy is still an adventure worth pursuing. What's fascinating is that playful risk doesn't have to be grand. It could be as simple as initiating in an unexpected place, changing the pace, or trying something that feels slightly outside the couple's comfort zone. The point isn't the act itself, it's the energy it creates. It injects unpredictability into a space that may have become too predictable. That unpredictability reignites the spark that many couples mistakenly believe can only be found in the beginning stages of love. In truth, it can be recreated again and again when both partners are willing to step into playful experimentation. There's also a neurological explanation for why this works. Novelty stimulates the brain's reward centers. Studies have shown that couples who engage in new experiences together, even outside of intimacy, report higher relationship satisfaction. When novelty is introduced in the most vulnerable space between two people, the effect is amplified. The brain associates the thrill of risk with the partner, strengthening the bond. This is why moments of playful risk often become the most memorable. They stand out from the routine and get etched into memory as unique, meaningful, and exciting. For men, this craving often carries an unspoken edge of rebellion against monotony. Many won't voice it because they don't want to appear demanding or dissatisfied. But beneath the silence is a longing for moments that make him feel alive, that remind him passion isn't supposed to be tame all the time. When those moments occur, he doesn't just feel physical excitement. He feels a renewed sense of attraction to his partner. He sees her not just as familiar, but as mysterious, intriguing, someone who can still surprise him. That surprise is powerful fuel for desire. Playful risk also deepens trust. To step into the unknown, even in small ways, requires a level of safety in the relationship. When both partners lean into this, it signals, "I trust you enough to explore. I feel safe enough with you to be adventurous. This interplay of safety and risk creates a paradox that keeps intimacy vibrant. Too much safety without risk breeds complacency. Too much risk without safety breeds instability. The sweet spot is when both coexist. It's also important to note that playful risk isn't just about men's desires. Women, too, benefit from shaking off routine and reigniting playfulness. But because men often feel pressure to maintain control and predictability, the craving for risk can become even more pronounced. When it is acknowledged and met, it doesn't just satisfy him, it revitalizes the entire connection. At its core, playful risk is about rediscovering the thrill of possibility. It's about remembering that intimacy is not meant to be a checklist, but an ever-evolving dance. And when couples dare to add that touch of unpredictability, they remind each other that passion doesn't die with time, it dies with stagnation. The cure, then, is simple. Keep playing, keep risking, keep surprising. That is the craving men rarely admit, but always feel. Have you ever felt the difference between being touched out of urgency and being touched out of reverence? One feels rushed, transactional, like it is leading toward an inevitable end. The other feels timeless, like every second is savored for its own beauty. This is the essence of what many men secretly crave, but rarely ask for intimacy that is slow, connected, almost sacred. It's not about performance or intensity, it's about depth. The kind of intimacy where the world seems to pause, where two people move in rhythm, not just with their bodies, but with their breath, with their emotions, with their hearts. Men are often stereotyped as driven only by speed and gratification. The narrative says they want it fast, they want it strong, and they want it to end in climax. Yet underneath that stereotype lies a quieter truth. Many men long for the exact opposite. They crave slowness, a moment where there is no rush, no expectation, no pressure. In these moments, intimacy becomes more than physical. It becomes spiritual. It becomes a way of saying, I am not just here to take from you, I am here to merge with you. This craving is rarely spoken aloud, partly because men fear being judged as less masculine if they ask for tenderness. But when they experience it, it awakens a side of them they didn't know they needed. The psychology of reverence in intimacy is profound. Moving slowly forces presence. It strips away distraction. Instead of racing toward a finish line, attention lingers on each sensation. Every touch, every glance, every breath becomes amplified. The nervous system calms, and oxytocin, the bonding hormone, floods the body. This is why couples who practice slow intimacy often report feeling more deeply connected afterward. The act itself may be gentle, but the emotional weight it carries is enormous. It validates the man in a way he rarely receives, that he is not just desired for his utility, but cherished for his being. This craving for reverence also ties to something deeper, the longing to feel safe in surrender. Men carry an immense cultural pressure to perform, to be skilled, to impress, to meet expectations. This pressure often robs them of the chance to simply be present. But when intimacy slows down, when it becomes sacred, that pressure dissolves. He is no longer an actor in a performance. He is a participant in a shared ritual. This is what allows him to soften, to open, to feel not just like a lover, but like a soul being honored. There is a certain healing power in these moments. Many men go through life without ever experiencing affection that isn't rushed or goal-oriented. When they finally do, it changes their understanding of what intimacy can be. It teaches them that being loved isn't about proving themselves, but about existing in connection. This redefines masculinity, not as constant striving, but as the courage to be still, to be seen, to be held. It also redefines intimacy not as a physical exchange, but as an emotional sanctuary. One of the reasons men rarely ask for this is because they fear it will be misunderstood. They worry that slowing down might be seen as weakness or lack of passion, yet in reality, it is the opposite. To move slowly, to cherish every moment, requires incredible strength. It requires a willingness to face vulnerability head-on, because slowing down means feeling everything. It means being exposed to emotions that speed might cover up. For many men, this is terrifying, but it is also what they secretly crave. The craving for reverence is also tied to memory. When intimacy is slow and sacred, it lingers in the mind. It becomes a reference point he carries with him, a reminder that connection can be more profound than physical release. These memories often surface in quiet moments, like when he is alone or reflecting on the relationship. They are powerful because they speak to a deeper need the need to feel truly bonded. There's also an interesting scientific layer here. Studies in neuropsychology show that slow, rhythmic touch activates special nerve fibers in the skin called tactile afferents, which are directly linked to feelings of emotional closeness and comfort. This means that moving slowly isn't just a preference, it's a biological pathway to connection. Men who experience this aren't just enjoying the moment, their brains and bodies are literally being rewired for greater attachment and security. At the heart of this keynote is a simple truth: men, like anyone else, want to feel that intimacy is not a transaction, but a transformation. They want to know that they are not simply bodies colliding, but souls meeting. Reverence in intimacy gives them that experience. It creates a sense of sacredness that reminds them they are more than what they do, more than what they achieve. They are someone worth cherishing slowly, deliberately, with presence. And that experience stays with them long after the moment ends, becoming a foundation upon which deeper love can grow. Have you ever noticed how much of intimacy is filled with noise? Not just literal sounds, but the mental chatter, the pressure of performance, the constant focus on what should happen next. Many men secretly crave the opposite: stillness. They long for a position that allows silence not as an absence of passion, but as its purest form. In that silence, something deeper is revealed. Without words, without distraction, intimacy takes on a new dimension. It is no longer about proving, impressing, or achieving. It is about simply being. And for men who often live under the relentless expectation of action and noise, the craving for stillness becomes one of the most powerful, though rarely expressed, desires. Silence in intimacy is radical because it strips everything down to presence. Imagine being in a moment where nothing needs to be said, where breath becomes the language, where the rhythm of hearts replaces the rhythm of words. This isn't emptiness, it's connection distilled. Men crave this because it gives them permission to rest, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. To rest in the knowledge that they don't have to perform or entertain, that they can simply exist with their partner and still be enough. That kind of rest is rare in their daily lives, where pressure to achieve, to provide, to lead is constant. In stillness, that burden dissolves. What makes silence so profound is that it exposes truth. In the absence of distraction, men can finally feel the raw reality of connection. It becomes clear whether the bond is real, whether the closeness is authentic, whether love is present. That's partly why silence feels both terrifying and healing. Terrifying because it doesn't allow for masks. Healing because when the bond is real, silence amplifies it. It creates a depth of intimacy that no amount of words can replicate. Psychologically, this craving makes sense. The nervous system is highly sensitive to external stimulation. Constant talking, movement, or pressure keeps it in a state of alertness. Silence, on the other hand, activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the body's natural relaxation response. This is why moments of still intimacy feel so grounding. They slow the heart rate, deepen breathing, and create a sense of safety. For men, who are often encouraged to live in constant fight or flight mode, silence becomes a rare sanctuary. It is a space where they can finally exhale. There is also a symbolic layer to stillness. For centuries, strength has been defined by action, doing more, pushing harder, showing louder. But true strength often lies in restraint, in the courage to stop, to be quiet, to allow vulnerability in the form of presence. When a man experiences intimacy through silence, he learns that he doesn't need to fill every gap with effort. He discovers that his worth is not in constant doing, but in being. That realization is liberating. It reshapes the way he sees himself and the way he approaches connection. Stillness also fosters awareness. In silence, small details become amplified. The warmth of skin, the weight of breath, the subtle shifts of energy between two people. These details are often overlooked in the rush of more active intimacy, but in stillness they become profound. Men crave this heightened awareness because it brings them into the present moment. It pulls them out of their heads, away from worries and expectations, and roots them in the now. That presence is what makes intimacy feel alive, rather than mechanical. Another layer to this craving is the way silence creates equality. In a moment of stillness, there is no leader and no follower, no pursuer and no pursued. There is only presence. Both partners are simply there, sharing the same space, breathing the same air. existing together. This dissolves the invisible hierarchy that men often feel burdened by, the pressure to always take charge, to always initiate. In silence, he doesn't have to hold control. He can simply share. That equality is deeply comforting because it means love is not conditional on performance. It's also worth noting that silence in intimacy leaves a lasting imprint. These moments are often remembered not for what happened, but for how they felt. The quiet resonance of two people simply existing together stays in memory because it is so rare. Life is filled with noise, silence is scarce. When a man experiences intimacy in silence, it becomes a reference point he carries with him, a reminder of what true closeness feels like. What men secretly long for in this craving is not emptiness, but fullness. A fullness of presence, of being known without needing to speak, of being loved without needing to prove. Silence teaches that intimacy is not about doing more, but about being more. It is about realizing that the deepest connection often requires the least effort. In that stillness, men find something they didn't know they were searching for: peace. And in that peace, they discover a kind of intimacy that transcends the physical and touches the very core of who they are. When you step back and look at all of these hidden cravings together, a pattern emerges. Men are not simply looking for novelty or technique. They are searching for experiences that make them feel alive, valued, and seen. The positions we've explored, the surrender to being desired, the vulnerability of closeness, the admiration that celebrates the thrill of playful risk, the reverence of slow connection, and the silence of stillness are not just physical preferences. They are windows into deeper emotional needs. They reveal that men, beneath the surface of confidence and control, are just as hungry for acceptance, safety, and affirmation as anyone else. The real lesson here is that intimacy is never just about the body, it is about the soul. When couples recognize this, intimacy stops being a routine to maintain and becomes a space to grow. Each of these cravings is a reminder that passion is not sustained by performance, but by presence. It's about daring to reverse roles, daring to slow down, daring to admire, daring to play, daring to sit in silence. And in doing so, you give each other permission to stop performing and start connecting. What men secretly long for is not perfection, it's authenticity. They want to know that they can be desired without asking, vulnerable without judgment, admired without arrogance, adventurous without fear, cherished without pressure, and silent without losing closeness. And when those needs are met, intimacy transforms. It becomes more than a moment. It becomes a memory, a bond, a source of strength that carries into every part of the relationship. At the heart of it all is this truth: intimacy is not about what you do, but about how deeply you are willing to see and be seen. That is what men crave most, even if they rarely find the words to ask for it.